South Africa is such a beautiful country. It goes without any doubt or even a debate, especially when you travel the world and you get to see and appreciate South Africa even more. But even in its beauty, we do face some challenges. And I'm quite excited about today's episode because we're going to be talking about one of the key challenges that affects the future of the country, and that is youth unemployment. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into it, for those who don't know, Nedzina Langande Rendani Chivura, aka Ray D, your number one MC. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. And I see today's guest is already feeling energetic like I am. And it's another brand new and exciting episode of Next Gen Plumbing. I'm not alone today. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give her accolades, yeah? One of the key positive contributors within the growth of youth and empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, she's the stakeholder engagement sector lead for Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator. And she goes by the name of Sherrie Donaldson. Did I get it right?
You did. Thank you.
Sherrie, how are you?
I'm always good. It's so good to be back here. It's a long time since I've been here.
Wow.
I think it's about 3.5 years since I was last here.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to be back. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to our conversation because it's one of those conversations that really I'm quite passionate about. And I think a lot hasn't been done enough yet, to bridge the gap, especially youth unemployment. But before we get into it, you represent a fantastic organization. We've been hearing about this. When I joined the plumbing industry years ago, not too long, I'm trying to act like a guru now.
Like you're not old.
I still got that energy, yeah. But, when I just got to the industry, I kept on hearing Harambee. Harambee. And I didn't even, get to go into the detail and as I was growing in the industry. And I started figuring out, wow, this is actually a powerful entity and it adds a significant role in society. So Sherrie, to those who don't know, maybe let's start on what is Harambee? What is the purpose? What is your mission, your reason for existence, and what value are you adding into society?
Before I answer your question directly, I just want to tell a story about Harambee.
Yes.
So I came out of the AdCorp group. I left them in 2017. But while I was there, we had a recruitment process outsourcing solution and we were doing the work for ABSA. So my boss at the time went to the same hairdresser as Maria Ramos, who was CEO at the time. So she'd met her before. So she's sitting next to her at the hairdresser and she says, hi, I'm so-and-so. We met. We're doing this work for you. And Maria Ramos turned around and said, I love Harambee and the work you do. So it just shows the organization and the power of the organization, the power of what we do.
Yes.
So Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator, our official title.
Yes.
We're a not-for-profit company. Okay. We were established almost 14 years ago. April is our 14th birthday.
Come on. So we're in the right season, yeah?
Yeah, no, definitely. And our mission is to help solve the problem of youth unemployment in South Africa. We all know that's a huge challenge.
Yes.
It fluctuates a little bit. I mean, Stats SA last quarterly labour force survey said youth unemployment had dropped a little bit, which is fantastic. But it was still sitting over 40%.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's
a very huge number.
It's huge numbers. Yeah. It's huge numbers. We know that about 1 million young people leave the schooling system every year. Only about 30% of them land up in work. Another 30% land up in some kind of training or short-term jobs.
Yes.
That leaves a huge number still unaccounted for.
Yeah.
And we need to be solving this problem.
And we know that it has a ripple effect. If you're not doing anything and you're not gaining a sense of income, you are probably going to look at alternatives which aren't necessarily positive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you find yourself in a desperate position. And I always say this, Sherrie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think a lot of young people are not necessarily waiting for handouts. I think they're seeking opportunity. Some, yes, we can debate, okay? We know, but I've met a lot of vibrant young people who just have passion to do something, but they just seemingly the gates are not opening.
Yeah. We have a saying that youth are not the problem, they're the solution.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And I hear so many people complaining about young people in South Africa. They're lazy, they don't work hard, they don't want to do stuff. But I mean, I am blown away by the young people I interact with, and projects that we work on, partners like Blue Lever. Any other time I interact with young people at TVETs, I'm blown away. They astound me, their energy, their passion, their purpose. Harambee has so many other programs that aren't in plumbing, but all of those programs, those young people are absolutely amazing. And we need to give them those chances and help them create their own opportunities. I think we need to change the mindset of someone else can do it for me.
100%.
But we need to help them do that stuff.
I love that. I think, I came to the office last time, when I walked in, and I'm being honest, I was at Harambee's office, all right? It is such a vibrant, energetic place. It's colorful. It almost entices activity around creativity, and I think, was that intentionally designed like that, or is this just the added effect of it?
No, so it's a combination. It's the actual design of the building is conducive to that. And I mean, when you were there, we had Kasi to Kasi there, and you were meeting with them. And so one of the things we love to do is support partners and help them. At the same, a couple of weeks later, we had Blue Lever. We're running their solar installer leadership base camp, and they actually used our premises for some of their training because they didn't have a venue. So, so we love to engage with partners and have partners in our space as well. But we have a lot of young people in Harambee, and that energy comes through. We have a call center. Our youth, the titles change all the time, but it's basically the center, the guides that support young people in their work journey. We call them guides because they're helping young people. So it's not like a traditional call center. The Youth Employment Services team, and in that we have between Cape Town and Joburg about 130 young people that are doing a 1-year work-based learning project, but they came out of our database of young people. So they know the challenges young people. So they bring their energy. We've got a lot of people in Harambee who've come through the Harambee processes, and they bring their energy.
It's almost like an alumni.
It kind of is. And then you've just got people like me who are much older but are passionate about the problem.
We call it the mature, the wisdom,
Absolutely.
and then perhaps maybe, before we get into the plumbing side of it, what other different sectors, of employment do you target? And also maybe can we touch on the operational strategies that you do, the certain activities that you have in Harambee?
Yeah. So I just want to go back one step. Harambee was, in the Maria Ramos time, was very well known. We did a lot of what we call bridging. So a ready-to-work program that created a bridge for the young person from unemployment into the world of work. We touched a lot of lives, but it was very hands-on. It was you had to be able to come to our offices, and it was very limited in the people we could reach. So exacerbated by COVID, but already planned, we changed our strategy and we started looking, well, what do we need to do as South Africa to have a much greater impact? So we can't do that alone. It's about how we bring partners in. And so really in trying to solve this, reduce the problem of youth unemployment, ultimately solve it. But in reducing youth unemployment, we say, well, what sectors should we be focusing on? Who should we be partnering with? What can we do to help people? And what can we test and pilot? But we look across Harambee, we have all these different sectors. So we have the sector I'm in, which is called Opportunity Development and Incubation. And there we have kind of sunrise growth sectors. So sectors that can create completely new jobs and that can also be inclusive for young people. We then have the more traditional space in the formal economy, which will have some youth jobs and they will carry on. And as people retire, hopefully they get replacing. So there's a lot of advocacy work to give young people the opportunity. We have a team that works with government, in government recruitment itself. They're a big recruiter, but also trying to work differently with government on the public employment programs. And then we have a team, which also actually sits in our team, that works on something we call Make Your Own Money. So how do we get young people to start micro entrepreneurships, hustles, whatever that we want to call them, but to start and get on that ladder of entrepreneurship And then how do we help them grow on that ladder?
Okay.
But
Okay.
so we're not working at an SME incubator level, we're working at a level underneath that. So in our sectors, we have the formal economy sector and
Yes.
a lot of the big corporates. We partner with people like Business Unity SA,
Come
Business
on.
Leadership SA,
Okay.
in those kind of partnerships. And then in the sunrise growth sectors, we have a focus on agri in traditional agriculture, but also in agri processing. And then we have installation, repair, and maintenance. Plumbing fits in
That's
there.
where we come in. Yes.
And we also have the green economy, which we're trying to explore and understand. Obviously, there's a crossover with installation, repair, and maintenance, but there's also a whole bunch of new stuff.
100%.
And we're trying to figure out what can we do with young people? What opportunities can we create that can create opportunities for young people?
I love that. I hope anyone that's young that's watching this right now will understand the value that Harambee has to offer. You know, I think it's always about having the passion more than anything. If you find the people or the youngsters that come with the drive, that come with the hunger for knowledge, it probably makes the process much easier as well in what you're trying to achieve. I want to jump into it now, into the plumbing side of things, all right?
Okay.
Yeah. I think it goes without a doubt. We've been saying this throughout the episode. There's so many young people that are unemployed. But once again, here's the plumbing industry, one of the possible contributors to being a solution. And I think it also starts with how plumbing is perceived. You know, when people think of plumbing, they still think of an overall guy, all right, who's got missing tools, a bucky that's almost half dead, who probably doesn't look like is financially stable. And that's the incorrect perception. And perhaps maybe that's why the traffic towards the industry has been quite minimal in the past few years. But we've seen growth and we've seen a lot of young people come into this industry. But now, as I mentioned, here's an industry and here's opportunities. We've got specializations, designations. You know, there's a lot of intellectual property around our industry. You can be an auditor. You know, you can work in many different aspects when it comes to plumbing. Once plumbing has been identified as a key contributor, how do we now bridge this gap? Sherrie, how do we now make the young people really see that there's value here? You know, and don't come in with the fact of just wanting to make money. Come in with, you know, I want to grow, I want to add value, and I want to be a valuable person in society. 100% financially stable, financially growing. But how do we bridge that gap, you know? Because I think sometimes it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have all the answers.
100%. I think it's good to talk about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is that perception of the industry. Young people choose careers based on what they know, what they perceive the earnings to be, what the brand value of the companies are, and what their parents tell them to do.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Again, in my AdCorp days, we had a division that was actually training artisans, including plumbers.
Yes.
And we had this whole debate about how do we get people to come and want to be plumbers and artisans, other types of artisans. And so I asked the question, there were probably 20 of us in a room. And I said, well, how many of you would encourage your kids to go be plumbers as parents?
Yes.
And nobody put up their hands.
No.
So we have to. So if young people aren't being told by their parents, how do we tell them that this is actually a great career?
Yeah.
So it's a lot for me about the storytelling. It's about creating role models. And I think there's a lot of work being done with a lot of the training providers, creating that kind of ecosystem of plumbers.
Yeah.
I also have done some great work with the stock photos that they've did, all of that work, showing women, showing Black people, showing that this is actually something. But then we need successful young people to be telling their stories to make it attractive.
Yes.
But interestingly, when we first started partnering with Blue Lever in their first couple of intakes, applications on SA Youth for that plumbing apprenticeship, I think we sat at about 5,000 applicants per time. So there wasn't a shortage of people wanting to understand more. But then it's about finding the right fit, finding 100%. The right people, filtering, selecting. So that you don't get someone I laughed. Someone from D here told me the story.
Yeah.
He's a qualified electrician.
Yeah.
And he told me the story that one of the TVETs had someone who, when they got to trade test prep, couldn't go for trade test because he was colorblind, but he'd gone through the whole electrician
Oh, my
training.
goodness. Yeah.
So we need to filter and select to make sure we're putting the
Yeah.
right people in.
Yeah.
But it's about starting with that perception. It's about telling parents and families that this is actually a great career.
100%. Yeah, I always say this, right? Everyone wants to be a lawyer. Everyone wants to be a doctor. You know, these are the careers we were taught when we were in primary school. That, hey, you know, they have
Perception
dignity.
of an easier life.
Yes, you know, but here's the funny part. This is how plumbing now overtakes it all. Even if you're a doctor, even if you're a lawyer or an accountant, you still use the toilet, you know? At the end of the day, we still have some sort of influence and impact in the entire form of society.
Yeah.
Maybe let's touch on workplace preparation, you know, and some of the key things that you guys do to get, you know, it's one thing having the hunger, gaining the knowledge, but now when you have to now go into practically doing the work and being in that industry, you could be overwhelmed. You could be stuck in a lot of shock, you know, because you're so used to being mentored. So how do you guys get the youngsters to really be prepared for the real world when it comes to workplace preparation?
So we used to do that bridging program that I
Yes.
spoke about. In the meantime, what we've done is we've developed this platform called SA Youth, which is the platform that sayouth.mobi, which is the platform that young people will join. On SA Youth, there is a lot of content for young people. So how to prepare for interviews, how to prepare a CV. We're actually building an SA Youth CV, which will go live soon. But there's a lot about how to conduct yourself, about career guidance.
Yes.
But what we've realized is actually that we also need to support businesses who have young people working for the first time,
Yes.
because there is that cultural mismatch. There are those dynamics. Young people come in, they don't necessarily know how to be in the workplace. And young people themselves need so much more support.
Yes.
So we've got a team, and we actually have just launched or about to launch. A lot of that content was in our traditional ready to work. And we're making that available to employers, to industry bodies. And we're doing it on a train-the-trainer approach. So we, like, let's say PRB want to partner with us, we would train some trainers with you guys. And then you can then run those programs. That'll be for those partnerships, and that content will be for free.
Yes.
So we'll make it available. And we're also doing that, trying to figure out how we can do that with TVETs as well.
Yes.
That's a much longer process. Employers are often easier to get to first time. But working with industry bodies, working with employer partners, hopefully with TVETs, to spread that content, make it much more available. So that young people come into work with a different mindset. That content includes some digital literacy, it includes problem solving, includes just how to behave in work. And there's a whole bunch of modules in 100%. That space. Yeah.
I love that. I would, off script, all right? Because I can see you're passionate about this. It goes without a doubt, right? Off script, okay? What would you say are some of the things that that you've experienced that maybe youngsters who are still in this opportunity or who are in this position keep making the same error in? You know, maybe the common things that you've picked up. For example, they could start the process not complete, or what are some of those things? And it's important for the youngsters to understand so that they don't fall into the same traps that those who have not succeeded by this great opportunity have.
Yeah. So I think there's a whole bunch of things. I think before you even talk about what the youngsters are not doing right, you've got to look at the barriers for those young people.
100%.
So the cost of data, the cost of transport. On average, it costs a young person about 1,500 Rand a month to look for work in South Africa. I mean, that's a huge amount of money if you're not employed. And if you're coming from a household that's dependent on social grants, where do you get that money? You know, so I think there's all these other, for young women, that they have to look after kids or adults or people who need help in their households, all the unpaid household work, you know, all of those things, the double transport. So for a young woman to look for work, she's got to take a kid somewhere to be looked after first, and often that's far away, and then get another, you know, so the cost of transport just to get to work.
Yeah.
More than one taxi ride, young people don't stay. So there's all those barriers, and that's part of the bigger work that Harambee is trying to solve for. But I think for me, it's the young people that I see that are successful definitely take initiative. So I talked earlier about waiting for someone to help you.
Yes.
There's a lot of content on SA Youth about starting your own hustle, starting your own business, starting to earn money. And then there's opportunities on the platform, both in technical, like with Allen Gray Makers. If you've got an existing plumbing business, you can apply for some of the Allen Gray Makers programs, and they'll help you incubate your business, as an example. So but there's also others. It's not only technical, was what I was trying to say. But so I think it's about leverage the content that is available. SA Youth is data free. So for young people, if you have a problem with data, can't get free Wi-Fi, that's a great way to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing. I think when our guides talk to young people that are battling to look for jobs, it's one about getting active on SA Youth. People, some of our stats show that people who are actively engaged on SA Youth and come in more frequently definitely land up in better opportunities. So come engage with the content, be on SA Youth, be active. But then I think leverage. Our guides also tell young people, look to see where you can volunteer.
Yes.
A big barrier for young people is, I don't have work experience. How do I get into the world of work? Well, if I'm volunteering, then I'm showing skills.
Yes.
I'm showing incentive and initiative. I'm showing potentially leadership. Maybe I'm learning some marketing skills, whatever it is that I'm doing, but I'm volunteering. So that's the one thing. And then also, if you are doing something in that make your own money space, that's building your workable skills. If you don't see your own business as your career, I think we need to change a lot more of that. But if it is your stopgap, then leverage those skills and put what you're doing on your CV, because it's telling people more about you.
Yes.
So if I'm running a small enterprise, I'm learning business skills. I was hearing earlier about your business podcast for plumbers. I mean, that's like helping young people, but people who understand the concepts of business will be more successful in business.
That's true.
So there's that. And then leverage all those free online courses. Again, on SA Youth, we have learning content, but there's so many free online courses. If you have access to Wi-Fi, leverage those. Build your profile, build your skills, and make it happen for yourself.
I just want to remind our viewers back at home, ladies and gentlemen, in studio from Harambee. She is the Stakeholder Engagement Sector Lead for Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator. Her name is Sherrie Donaldson. Sherrie, when we're having a powerful conversation like this, time just seems to just fast forward in some way, all right? Something I'm really quite passionate about, and I think you perhaps would be as well, is in the past, we know that a lot of women have been deprived from a lot of opportunities. It's a fact, and it also goes back to certain stereotypes with trades that, hey, only men can do this, I'm glad that that's changing, We're seeing that there's an influx of queens coming into the industry. Are you seeing that as well when it comes to the program that you're running at Harambee? Are you seeing a lot of influx of ladies? And I'm not trying to create a gender competition here, all right? No. It's very important to highlight this. It's a national topic of discussion. Are you guys witnessing something like that there?
So when we first started engaging in the plumbing space, we had a partnership with AOPSA and Blue Lever. And in both of those programs, we actually set really ambitious targets around female inclusion. Beautiful. And it was funder driven. So we had a target from the organization that was funding us. But we set quite ambitious targets. And they were really hard. And it isn't hard and I think we also partnered with NBI on Plumbing Hand at the same time. And so I think traditional plumbing, ARPL, and plumbing apprenticeship, ARPL, and the Plumbing Hand, all of them had enough young ladies applying for the job. The biggest problem is getting the workplaces to give those young women a chance. So there's a huge amount of advocacy about getting women that opportunity. But I think in one of our Breaking Barriers research reports, we talked about this, and we said
Yeah.
that where young women are given the chance,
Yeah.
they literally like break down the doors.
100%.
And
Yeah.
they often do outshine the gentlemen. So gentlemen, you've got to up your games.
Yeah. That's positive motivation.
But yeah, so there's a huge amount of work. But also all of the programs we've been engaged in any kind of technical skill, we also do something called GESI training, so gender equity and social inclusion. And we kind of, again, that was forced in the beginning, but it's been adopted by all of those partners. And it's important that we're not only training young women how to be in the world of work, especially with all the challenges they're going to face in those more technical kind of spaces, but actually that we're training the gentlemen at the same time. Again, how to be, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And I think there's a huge amount of work to still be done. But the progress is starting. And again, I think if we can, from the role modeling side, again, create those success stories, we then start saying, well, okay, if someone else can do it, I can do it. And the young women I've spoken to that have graduated as plumbers recently, they just say, like, they see that role model aspect as such an important part of what they have to give back. And I love that.
That's
I absolutely
beautiful.
love that.
That is absolutely beautiful. When you were talking about this, I was thinking of our highest designation in the plumbing industry, which is the Master Plumber designation. And, you know, I can't wait for the queens to get there. Because I think that will, once again, change a whole lot of things. And also still, I love the role model part that you need people who can influence, who can inspire, you know, like you said, you use the perfect words. If I can do it, you know, if she can do it, I can also take that journey there. You know, Sherrie, I want to give you the platform. All right. I want you to open your heart and really send a message to that youngster who's perhaps right now going, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I feel stranded. I'm losing hope. I'm desperate. This society is hard on me because my friends and my peers seemingly are of a better class and are living a better life. You know, what words of encouragement would you want to leave them with, especially in the significant position you play where you are creating platforms of empowerment?
So yeah, I think the first thing is join SA Youth Harambee as a young person. Interact with it regularly. I quoted those statistics earlier that the more you interact, there definitely is a correlation. And we're testing that and understanding that. So I think that's the first thing. I think see where you can learn something, because everything that years ago I had a mentor. I was really new in the world of work, and someone mentored me, and he said, everything that you do in life, every little bit of experience you get is like a mini qualification. So see it like that. Say, okay, well, if I can learn something here, and everything I'm doing, what can I learn? And how can I leverage that to help myself? So if I say, okay, well, if I can volunteer if I'm church going, if I can volunteer at a local church, what does that give me? What can I build on that? And then how can I use that to get the next step and the next step and the next step? So I think it's join SA Youth. Find places that can support you. If you are feeling hopeless, if you need help, need guidance, we have a toll-free call center, 0800 727272, I think.
There we go. Not difficult to forget. You know?
So it's 0800 SA.
To remember,
so it's easy to remember. But yeah, so we have a toll-free call center, again, try to remove barriers for young people. Talk to our guides. They've been there. They know what you're going through as a young person. They come from the same background, and they really can empathize and understand and help guide you, hopefully, to make a change.
100%. From us, the Plumbing Industry Registration Board, the professional body of plumbing in South Africa, I think it's important to give people their flowers while they can still smell them. And today we're giving it to you.
Thank you.
I think you're doing a fantastic job. I speak on behalf of many. We see it. We see you on the ground. I think that's what I love the most. You're on the ground. You are there. You are interacting
At schools,
with
talking to grade
and
eights.
schools talking to grade eights. And I think it's also just, it shows the effort you put in. It doesn't go to waste. There is that one child that gets inspired, that seed that we've planted. And I really want to salute you. I want to salute the organizations that you represent. Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator. I mean, it doesn't get bigger and better than that. I always do this whenever there's a powerful moment. Yes, man,
I love it.
So honestly, you guys are doing a fantastic job. And it has to be acknowledged, step by step. We'll get there as long as we know what the vision is. Where can people get a hold of this amazing organization? How can they touch base?
Okay, so they can get hold of me. So
Yes.
Sherrie at Harambee, SHERRIE at harambee.co.za. Young people can join SA Youth. I mentioned the toll-free call
Yes.
center, toll-free number, on all the social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, all of that for young people.
Yes.
For businesses, if businesses want to join SA Youth as well, they can use it to find young people on the platform. There's a partner portal on SA Youth. It's called SA Youth Partner.
Yes, yes.
You can join the partner portal there. But again, they can get hold of me and I'll help them.
Yeah, this is not the last of this discussion, right?
Not.
Our next time we want to chat, I want to touch on the learner plumber designation. I think we can align something there. But thank you so much for your time, Sherrie. It is an absolute honor to engage you, and keep up your great work. All right.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
I'm glad you came through. All right.
Always.
To our viewers back at home, make sure you touch base with us on our social media. On Facebook, Instagreasy, and X. It's at PIRPSA. Please make sure you go onto our YouTube channel. There's this thing that they like doing. Follow, subscribe, click that notification button, okay? So that you can get more information. And if you're a young person, remember, it might be tough now, but diamonds and gold go through process to get their ultimate value. So don't give up. There are platforms of opportunities. On my side, we close it off in style. I'll just remind you once again, Zina Langande Rendane Chibura, aka Brain D, your number one MC. That was another exciting episode of Next Gen Plumbing. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Yes, man.